before your experiences with secret societies versus after your experience? What would your definition of magic be before and then after?
And would it be with a K?
Yeah.
Before I thought it was with a K, and I wasn't with the K was not really what it was to me. Prior I thought that magic was real. I did think, I guess prior to getting into it, I did believe it was much more serious than it was.
What did you think magic was?
Well, you could actually manipulate the people or the world around you.
Okay.
You know, like I really did think it could go that far. Once I started practicing it, I really thought it was much more of a lower level, to where maybe like I'm just kind of like manipulating my own little area around it. Then eventually I got more into the psychological aspect, to where I thought it was really all just in my head, to where like I'm just alchemy of the mind, to where I'm just staying so balanced that I can make moves in my own life and look at everything objectively, to where I can, be who I want and, not be a slave so much to emotions.
Right.
I thought it was that. Once I started getting more, I guess, into personal experiences, to me, the magic with a K was something that I had never even thought was possible, or a possibility, or even real. To me, eventually, my experiences with magic, to an extent, it's kind of like a tethering of the soul, or you do, in a way, die for a few seconds or maybe a few minutes, and you do leave somewhere else. That was never, ever a thought of a possibility or an option, even when prior to going in, that's how it was done.
Hey, yo, welcome to the Godcast.
Nothing is as it seems. Nothing. I mean, literally, nothing is as it seems.
We took authority for truth instead of truth as our authority.
The great deception is still to come.
Not every human you see is human.
A lot of us equate our value in life to the things that we have or the things we're able to acquire. And not the things that we're able to pass on.
But just sharing this story allows those people who are just starting out to recognize that there's somewhere to go.
Do you find solidarity within the differences, or do you find division within the similarities?
And it was a battle for my soul.
Worship in a mosh pit.
It's Nuck if you buck means the gospel. What's up now?
Welcome to Godcast,
the Goodness Over Darkness podcast.
Here's your host, Emmanuel Kingman.
It's showtime. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Godcast, the Goodness Over Darkness podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuel Kingman, and here with me is the Secret Society Slayer, Mimi.
Bright and shiny over here.
Yes, ma'am.
Glowing.
Yeah, and so you guys, if you're listening to this, you've just heard my newest intro. Let me know what you think in the comments. Give a like, a share, subscribe, and comment.
Look at that. I should have given you.
And let me know what you think about it. So today's episode, we had on special guest NY Patriot, or New York Patriot, as you may know him. And he is from the Occult Rejects, as well as his own show called NY Patriot. No, it's New York Patriot, but the show is just the NY, so that's why I'm saying NY here. And during the episode, I mentioned something about Yaldabaoth, so I just wanted to bring this up here in the intro. I didn't have it prepared for the show, so here, let me get rid of this thing I have on the banner. Okay, so here we go. It's Yaldabaoth, and its name is cannabis, and it's a lion head with a twisted serpent body, and it looks like a joint, and it's very, very weird, and its name's cannabis. So if you don't know Yaldabaoth, if you're only listening to this, I suggest you go watch the video. But Yaldabaoth is the twisted serpent of wisdom from Gnosticism, called Cannabis from the Egyptian Khnep, the father of Ptah. Another way of spelling cannabis is cannabis with a K, the name of the Essenes, and cannabis or cannabis, he is the canna, the serpent or conduit, biz or buzz from Anna or heaven. And I think this is the beast of Revelation that I was talking about. Now maybe it's not the exact one, but it's something similar to that anyway. So if you guys have if you come across that later in the episode, then you'll know what I'm talking about. So if you're only listening to the audio and you want to go check out the video portion for that, then go ahead. It's right there in the first 2.5 minutes. On this episode, we talk about the OTO. He is a former member. NY Patriot's a former member of the OTO, and we talk about different things about the OTO and secret societies, how to get in, how to get out, what's kind of going on in there, male and female leadership, several different things like that. We also get into the symbolism that we see all the time. We talk about the Saturn-Moon matrix a bit, and he informs us on what that is and how it relates to the tree of life on the Kabbalah, as well as David Icke. And we just have a really good time chatting about different things. What did you?
We talked about how secret societies and other groups out there like to try and keep you in the lower chakras, which a lot of us know. And while that discussion was happening, I was getting the word that it's a phase that we all must transcend, and a phase would equal, it would be FASE, and that's fear, anger, sex, and ego. That's the phase we have to transcend to get out of that trap.
Wow, I love that. Did you
Yeah.
you got that quote unquote download during this, or you came up with
I got a
that?
big circle. Oops, wrong way. Big circle and lots of arrows here. Like, let me fit this in. And then I was like, let me just save it for the intro, because I never have. I'm never ready for the intro.
Right. Well, if anyone, all those who love Mimi specifically, you'll love this episode, because she does all the question asking in the.
Whoopsie.
No, I loved it. I love when you're prepared and you're taking on more of a role. So
I'm most prepared on the topics that I'm not that I'm not interested in the other topics, but ones that I really want to look into, I'm more prepared for, because the ones I'm not too into, I'm not really wanting to look up some. I'm more to wing it.
Right. And you follow him on IG, so, and you're friendly with him already, so it always helps when it's a friend, someone that we know,
or at least somebody I'm used to seeing their content, used to, it's easier to follow. Yeah.
Right. Right. So this was a fun episode. We had a really good conversation, and I think that a lot of people will benefit from it. Is there anything else you wanted to cover in the intro here?
I think that's it. I'm ready to get my food cooking on. I'm ready for that. And I'm sure my Instagram peeps are ready for my food pictures.
I'm ready for the food.
Yeah.
Already. Yeah. So make sure you go check out all of New York Patriot stuff on his show, as well as the Occult Rejects. I didn't mention that he's also co-hosts the Occult Rejects with Lux, and you can find all their stuff. I'll have it in the description. Make sure you go check out my website. You can see if you're watching the video, I have new banners on my on the screen here, so you can see.
Very big.
Well, yeah, it's because when you're in two people, I can't do it at the moment. When you're at two people, it fits perfectly with the, what's going on. So
does it look like I'm looking at it?
No. Well, I guess it does look like that, but it's not there.
Right. I'm really just looking at the sign that it's blocking.
Yeah, it is blocking a sign. But my website is EmmanuelKingman.com. IMMANUEL Kingman.com. And on there you can find all my different work, my blog postings, all my different photos, crazy photos of the clouds. You can find all my episodes, all of my different services that I offer, the reviews that I have. Also, join the Patreon. The Patreon is new. It's up and running. I will be starting the Bible studies this upcoming Sunday. So if you're listening to this on the day that it drops, March 6th is the day that I'm starting the Bible study. So if you still want to be part of it, you can send in the email at any time, subject Bible study, and I'll send you the Zoom link for that week. We're going to be doing it Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to just do a Bible study, hour and a half or so of, bring whatever Bible you have, bring whatever knowledge you have, whatever knowledge level you are with the Bible or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just come on, and you don't even have to participate, but you can just be there and listen. And I'm going to record that and throw it up on the Patreon, as well as I'm going to be doing Friday shows on the Patreon as well. So that's every Friday. I'm going to try to do it every Friday. I will have a more set schedule, but with my daughter doing softball now, things are going to go into flux a little bit. So I'm going to try to do a consistent Friday at 6:30, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. I'm going to go on there live, and it's going to be a hangout. So whoever's a Patreon member will be able to join, and we'll talk about different things. Whatever comes up, whatever teachings I'm guided to talk about, whether it's from Jesus or mystical stuff or whatever you guys want to learn, a Q&A type deal. Just it'll be a big hangout. It'll be a good time. So that'll be for the Patreon members that do $5 a month. So I have a $1 a month, a $3 a month, and a $5 per month. So if you guys can go join that, that would be greatly appreciated. The link is going to be in the description, and you can just go on Patreon and just search Goodness Over Darkness, and you'll find me real quick. It's the same logo and everything. All right, well, that's going to do it for the intro. So after the bridge, you will hear our interview with New York Patriot. Have a good night, everybody. We will talk to you later.
Welcome to the Godcast. Cross up on my back, I'm slaying demons. It don't matter what you call that. Searching for the truth, facts are facts until they fall flat. It's looking like a story, man, it's all cap. But it's goodness over darkness, it ain't all bad. I'm at my maker, but I was called back. Emmanuel, show my people they're under a spell. Heaven or hell is free will. I made my choice and now it's well with my soul. I pray the same for you as well. Welcome to the Godcast. Welcome to the Godcast.
Hello, everybody. On today's episode, I have on a guest who left his occult practices behind. He is a former member of the Ordo Templi Orientis, or more commonly known as the OTO. He is co-host of the podcast, The Occult Rejects, and hosts his own show, NY Patriot. Everyone welcome New York Patriot to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me on, man.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Yes.
It was a great honor to be on your show when we got to talk about Jesus and the Bible and the second destruction.
Great. Yeah, definitely have to have you back on again. That was actually a really good episode.
Yeah, I listened back to it and
hear deep stuff from other people.
Yeah, well, sometimes, I like to hear how I sound like a month or two later because of my thoughts are always evolving and changing. And listening to that, I think it was about 2 months after we talked, I was like, okay, I did sound really good there because, sometimes I just say what's on my mind and I hope that it's aligned with what my thinking is later on. It's not always, but I really like that episode.
Good. I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
My fans did. So
yeah, I had a couple people reach out to me that were fans of your show. So
good. I'm glad because that's exactly why I have people on. Good.
Yeah. So that was awesome. So why don't you tell my audience a little bit about yourself if they're not familiar with you?
I used to be. I'm now an ex-member or a former, member of the Ordo Templi Orientis. Like you said, most people probably know it of the OTO. It was a secret society that originally started in Germany and by other people, but eventually they handed it over to Crowley. They had read his book of the law and assumed that he knew the secrets of secrets, or he knew their secrets. So they contacted him and were like, what's up with this? How you're talking about our secrets in this book. And I think it basically came down to he was like, I don't know who you are. But they met and supposedly, as the story goes, who knows if the history is true, they handed the OTO over to him. It used to originally be an offshoot of Masonry, actually. Used to be able to be a Mason and transfer over to the OTO and possibly move over to a degree that, not starting at the bottom. like wherever you were in the Masons might attribute you to a certain degree in the OTO. They had a lot more degrees then. They probably had as many as the Masons did. Once Crowley took it over, he disassociated with the Masons, and he dropped the degrees down significantly. I joined that really, when I had started to get, I guess, into my occult search or whatever, or into magic and the whole idea of that stuff. I wasn't totally sold on Crowley to begin with. I thought he was an occult genius, but I understood that the person, I don't think he was a good person in general. I think he was a very disturbed person, and did, probably did horrible things as well. But when I was looking into places that I was interested in, OTO happened to be the only thing close to me at all. So I kind of was like, all right, I guess I'll go with that. And I went with that because I was more into looking to find something that was regimented, something that had kind of like a detailed plan, at least to a certain degree of, the initiation rituals and, how they're done, and, associations. There was a lot of math and associations with stuff like that. So I found it very interesting. And I gravitated towards that. And, during the time that I was in the OTO, I guess my idea of magic changed as well. I had joined the OTO, believe it or not, because I did believe that secret societies were probably running the world, or influencing it, at least,
Right.
through magic and that stuff. That's why I had joined, and it was never to be a bad person. It was actually legit for me. I want to understand what's going on, and I want to know how to maneuver in and out of this stuff. How can I kind of create a bubble for myself to keep the shit out?
Right.
Believe it or not.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But I never once felt comfortable. I never once felt like a member or a brother, or as a sibling, as they call it. Once you become, first degree, you are a full member, and they call you, sibling, brother, or sister, whatever you are. It never felt like totally
Kind of like at the church.
Oh, that's how they get you. Honestly, I really
Interesting.
think, I had talked
They
about
make you family.
with somebody. I had talked about that with somebody that I had on the Occult Rejects. It was an ex-Jehovah's Witness. And I said, I think all these things have their own ways to make you feel like you're invited into like this family, this camaraderie. We got you. We are your peeps now. Like, really good. I really do think it's kind of its own little way to manipulate you into staying there and feeling welcomed and important.
Programming technique.
Yes,
I think.
I totally agree. Totally agree. And that got me for a little bit. For sure, I will admit it. That got me for a little bit. Believe it or not, at some point in my magical career with the OTO, I wasn't so much into conspiracies anymore. I was big into that. I was big into researching, and that's what led me into secret societies and thinking, the way I did about them. I slowly got out of that and was just mainly focused on magic and ceremonial magic. That's all it was for me. I lived, eat, and breathed it, and I started to think, oh, well, maybe it's just a lot in the mind. It's really not, as bad as I was thinking. So that kept me a little bit longer because I was thinking oh, maybe it's just really over dramatized and it's really not as bad as it is. It's just controlling your own thoughts and stuff and being a balanced person. And eventually, besides initiations that I took, maybe, we can get into it later if you want. Not going to go through it all now, but in my opinion, even in the initiations, they are warning you about what's going to happen if you stay. I do think they tell you, because in some ways, I think it's part of their job. If we told you 2 or 3 times and you didn't listen, it's your own fault now, buddy.
Yeah, I heard you talk about that. I think it was on Subconscious Realms with General Lee. You were talking about that they put it there, and it's kind of like how they reveal things to you in the public through pop culture and stuff. It's not coming right out and saying it directly to you, but they are saying it directly to you, just in a circumventing.
Yep, they need you to accept.
Yeah,
willingly.
They saying it directly to you, but the way they present it, you think it's another way. It's genius. I mean, it's fucked up. I don't agree with it, but it's
word
genius
magic.
to do it. Yes. Oh, yeah, totally. So, just besides that, I started questioning that, and then when I got to a specific degree, afterwards, they do kind of let you know certain qualifications that will be needed for other ones going up. And once I started to hear some of those, I knew my time was done. And I just started really questioning a lot to begin with. Not to get into politics, but I did also realize that the lodge itself is very much of the left, like far, like liberal. Like
Oh yeah.
we had socialists and communists there openly. You know, they're
Oh
open.
wow. Was this just your branch, or do you think this was everybody?
Well, all right. You know what I'm gonna say, and oops. Hold on. Sorry about that. My cat was in the way. When it comes to the OTO, and I think a big problem with it that's going to automatically make it very much to the left is that they push sex, the ideology, the idea of sex a lot.
Hmm.
You know, it's a very sexual order.
Sex
you know,
magic.
Yeah, they make you think, that there's their version of sex magic and what the people there might be doing could be told two different things.
Right. Okay.
But yes, they make you think that yes, there's sex magic. During the Gnostic Mass, I mean, the priestess gets completely nude.
Oh
So
wow.
I mean, if that's going to throw sexuality right in your face automatically,
Right.
and that's one of the most open meetings you can go to. You don't need to be a member to go to an open Gnostic Mass, and most OTO lodges, that is probably their primary, their main thing is the Gnostic Mass and a few other things. So right
is that how
away,
they
as soon
get
as you
people
come in
to
the
come
door
in?
well, I think it's a
Well,
way. The Gnostic Mass, in my opinion, if you're paying attention, had to have any idea about real magic, which odds are you, honestly, you probably won't if you're going there. The Mass would show you, in my opinion, all the secrets of secrets. It would show the man crossing the abyss and coming back, but they do toss nudity in there. The priestess is nude, and I do think that is a way to just automatically throw sex in your face.
Do you think that's also a way to distract from what they're actually saying because now you're not paying attention
Yes.
anymore?
Yes. That is my
Yeah.
whole opinion on most of sex magic, to be totally honest with you. A lot of it, in my
Look
opinion, does
over
not
here
even
and don't listen.
involve people having sex at all. It's just a tale of energies and a story going
Yeah.
along with inside yourself. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And they hand it to you in a way to where you look at it the wrong way, and then what do? Instead of rising up to your chakras, you hold down to that root one and live in the mundane.
Yeah. And so the craziest part about that sexual energy is you see it come out in so many different ways, especially on Instagram, where these women and there's women who are claiming they are of Christ that still show off their bodies.
Yeah.
And it really, one time, I don't even know how it happened, but Jesus revealed to me, as I'm contemplating things, that they're being fed this energy and they don't know where it comes from, but then they have to post more and more and more. They have to show off their bodies because they don't know they're being inhabited by something, or that something is giving them this power, this energy, and they feel it. So they feel compelled to show off their bodies. And when Jesus revealed that to me, I was just like, my mind was blown. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get why it's like an addiction, because they're being fed from an energetic being that isn't human, that is, feeding them, and other humans are putting into it. It is sex
Right. They're
magic.
using their body to feed
Yeah.
others into following along.
Right. Like men
Yeah.
are, it's sadly to say, but men will masturbate to almost anything. How many?
No, I was gonna say men will feed right into it, which keeps the
Yeah.
perpetual circle going. It's horrible.
Right. And that's energy, they're staring, they're putting their thought and energy and
I
intention
agree with
into
you,
this
actually, yes.
picture. And the
You are
woman
feeding
receives
you're
it.
feeding that image.
Yeah,
In a
it's
sense.
crazy.
No, I totally agree with you. Believe it or not, and I'm not saying that I'm vanilla or a prude or anything, but a lot of the accounts that you were saying yourself, I when I first, I guess started gaining a lot of subscribers and stuff on Instagram, and I would follow most of the people back as long as I could. Believe it or not, I came across a lot of accounts that neither, these were supposedly conservative women, Christian women, conservative Trump women, that, in my opinion, could not get on the camera unless their tits were sticking out or they were pushing their ass out.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I had not that I didn't like seeing it to a point. I mean, I'm a dude, but on in all honesty, it's actually sad.
Yeah.
Because you had those people, something's making them think that the only value they have is what's, their fucking body to get attention, and that's who you are with whatever
Exactly.
political ideology you think you have.
Exactly.
And
Mimi
I
was
just had to stop looking at it and I unfollowed them. That not because I'm a prude. It's just that it's actually kind of screwed up when you see people act like that and know like what's behind it. It's kind of like sad.
right. Mimi watches this one show, from time to time. She watches just a I don't even know what it's called, but just a comedy show.
Two broke girls.
Okay, yeah, and there's two
There's,
women
like,
in
the
there
one
who
yeah.
are very large breasted, and they always have their cleavage out. And every time I see it, I'm like, why is that their thing? Like, why do they need to be showing off their cleavage? Like, you're worth
Yeah.
more than that. It really disgusts me these days. And it's not that I'm turned off by female bodies, but sex doesn't run my life.
No, I think
that's
that's
just
what
a distraction.
I think that's what it is. And like, all right, so like one of the main things, one of the reasons why I left the OTO, besides like once I started having my own magical experiences myself, nothing to do with the OTO. I wasn't really so much associated with them for a while before I technically really left. But in my opinion, the experiences I had going by, how I had them and the type of work I had to do on my own self, in my opinion, to get where I got. My opinion, looking at the way the OTO pushes sexuality and just other ideas, is really more of slavery to make sure you don't go anywhere spiritually.
Right.
And I think sex was a huge part of that, for sure. And I think that's what had bothered me so much about like what you're saying before, is that it will put you into chains, and you will only find that being your self-worth.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's really, that's just such a superficial thing. You know what I'm saying?
It is.
There's so much more going on up in here that you're worth than what, I don't know. God already gave you that body. Why don't you try creating something with your mind? Maybe that's attractive. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
It's a cheesy way out. I hate to say it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, someone who was sexualized at a very young age, 5, 6, 7 years old, everything became about sex. So that's how I saw the world, was through the filter. Like, we're talking about Instagram here. You could change filters. Well, sexualization was the filter where I saw life. And it wasn't until I overcame that I am where I am now, and realized like, oh, wow, it's the second chakra, as you were saying. I lived down there in the anger in the first one, all those root emotions in the first one, and then the sex in the second one, then the selfishness in the third one. That's all I
That's
was.
where they try to keep you down
Yeah,
there.
I really, I after I had the experience that I had, or whatever it was, the experiences, I had realized for me, like, the type of work that I was doing for myself, like personal inventory and trying to change who I was. A lot of it was really trying to understand, like, why do I have certain fears? What makes me angry? What makes me tick? And you have to start looking at, like, my program for me. I don't look at, what is it that is makes me program the way I am, and why is that? And do I really agree with it now, looking at it?
Right.
And I had to remove a lot of, in my opinion, chains of slavery, and that's fear, anger, sex, all that stuff, to really. I feel that when you can start to work on that stuff, it will open you up to maybe hear God for once, instead of all the fucking voices in your head.
Right.
And I feel the OTO is just shoveling more voices to you to listen to, more labels, this and that. And I was just like, this place is actually the complete opposite environment that you should be in if you really wanted to have a spiritual experience with God.
Right. And you said once you started having your own outside of that place, which then guided you to leave. I had all my spiritual experiences. I was never part of any group. Like, I was looking into things here and there, all over the place, but it wasn't anybody ever that woke me up. It was God woke me up. It was God making me come to these realizations. It wasn't And once I realized that people were misleading me, that God would guide me, that I shouldn't listen to anybody, I shouldn't fall into any group, that's when things just really started unfolding for me. And, it's rapid when you start looking at it that way.
I think that was kind of a, believe it or not, a lot of my experience. I'll admit it. I'll go as far as saying I made it to the second degree. Going any higher than that, it really starts to narrow down the percentage of like who you could be. But at the end of the second degree, they will read off some of the requirements, and one of them I don't remember if it's the seventh or eighth, but I mean they legit tell you you're going to sign everything over that you have to.
Wow.
So now that told me this is a cult. To me, that's a legit cult.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would that be like equivalent of selling your soul at that point?
And there's women that I know now. I don't know if this is just for women or it goes for men also. But there is also, when you take the fifth degree, there's women that I knew that had to kind of carve a cross into their chest.
Wow.
So
what did that signify?
It could actually signify a lot of things to me, but the most main thing I think it signifies is you're my slave now because I just made you do this.
Wow. Yeah.
That's what I think it totally signifies the most.
That they sacrifice themselves.
A cross. It could be, it could be so many different things. But
yeah,
to me, I think that when I started listening to the requirements and seeing other things being done, and after going through the degrees that I went through, it seemed as if it's just a progression of
what will you do?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How far will you go?
How far will you go? And I think once you get to probably that fifth one covering that shit in, they know like, oh, we got him.
And 5 doesn't seem that high. And then you talk about 33rd and you're like, dang, what would you? Well, I mean, I'm sure there's
there's 12, a total of 12, and then there's Minerval. But still, like that's what I've said.
3 is low.
What's 7 more degrees later?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And technically, by the second or third degree, you're the third degree, or I forgot which one it is. Sorry. By the second or third, you're already considered like a perfected magician. So what is everything really else after that? Is it kind of just an ideology?
So many questions.
Or that leaves open a lot more space and degrees to question like, well, what is it all really about then?
All right, so let me ask you this, and I don't want you getting into any specifics about yourself, but are there embarrassment rituals? Well, yeah, but I mean, for this, are there embarrassment rituals that? So I'll use the example that's been coming to me the last few days, and I think you're the perfect person to ask.
Sure.
For whatever reason, Hillary Clinton comes to mind of what Bill Clinton cheating on Hillary with Monica Lewinsky. I think that was probably an embarrassment ritual for Hillary so that she would become president later on. And this was part of the reason why she was so shocked she didn't get it in 2016 was because she fulfilled that huge embarrassment ritual. Do you think that was what that could have been, or at least part of it?
Yes, to an extent. I think that there are things in these degrees that like as you move up, certain things I think kind of like, well, if you're willing to do this, I might kind of get you in this kind of club of cool kids for this type of stuff.
Right.
I mean, for me, I'll admit it, for the first degree, in order for me to actually become a member, if I wanted to go any farther at one point during the initiation, I had to take everything off. Now, I could have said no, and they would have said, okay, that's fine. You don't have to. And they would have stopped, and I never would have finished.
Right.
They did not make me do it, but I had to choose myself to strip down naked to finish.
Now, is that like during a mass, as you said, or is that just a meeting?
The first degree initiation to become a real member. I don't remember if it's that one or the second one, but they also do put like it signifies a few things. But at one point I kind of just stepped back and was like, besides a cult, what is this signifying?
Right.
What does this really look like? They tie a rope around your neck and walk you around, kind of almost like a dog, really. If you think about it, I mean, you're on your legs, you're not on all fours, but you are following them as they're pulling you with a rope. And I'm
the
like,
Masons do that too, right?
Well, you're becoming a slave to them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, here I'm looking at all the occult symbology, which yes,
baby steps.
There is, but at the end of the day, if you were to look at the situation and not hear a word, you would see this dude getting walked around naked with a rope around his neck.
So is this a group initiation or is it just a
Yeah.
individual? It's a group.
Anybody, from the experiences that I've had with initiations, there could be, a bunch of people doing them. I've normally experienced them with like 3 or 4, maybe 5 people at a time.
Okay.
One person
Small
will go at a time. And after they're done, they'll call somebody in, and the person who just went will stay there within the initiation. Let's say it's a 2nd degree initiation. Anybody of the 2nd degree and higher is more than welcome to come. There's going to be a bunch of people because they have setups inside the altar. I mean, the temple. They make this makeshift jacuzzi or tub looking thing. I mean, there's a lot of work in some of the stuff that they do. So there's tons of people there, and it's kind of like, for some people, it's like a party too, because after the fact, you'll have food. There'll be food. You'll hang out. I mean, it's
Drinking, drugs, girls.
I know. See, now that's the one thing. Now, I don't know how other places were. Now, I will say for mine, the place that I was at, they were very strict on drug use.
Oh, okay.
Because they did believe that to an extent, it is you do not know your will and you are not doing it. If you're on too much.
That's funny. They want you to be of sound mind.
Yeah,
to do this stuff.
But like there was people that I knew that one time showed up way too drunk, and they told him, "Yo, I'm sorry, but you got to go."
It does make sense, though. It does make sense.
And I really think it's more of, honestly, it's probably one, it makes them look good in one sense, and 2, it's probably just to keep more people coming in. Really.
Yeah. Is there psychedelic use in the OTO? Because I know there is in others.
I will say, from my experience with witches, ceremonial magicians, OTO people, Golden Dawn, not that I've experienced at something specific, but I mean, it's not uncommon for people to be using that stuff. Or like I've heard stories of members, using different things, but it was
on their own time.
Yeah, it was never something.
Okay.
It was never something that they handed out during a ritual, at least that I was at.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, here, have some of this.
Yeah, that would probably be a higher one, like the whole smoking DMT.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
To meet these other entities and actually like be face to face with them, that's a pretty common thing in I think it's the 32nd and 33rd degrees of Freemasonry, and then above that, or maybe it's only above the 33rd. It's right around there, but they smoke DMT to come face to face with quote unquote Satan, some kind of demonic entity that they then make a deal with.
Yeah. Well, I even believe OTO and other places, and it's kind of like a hard thing, pretty extreme thing to say. It's just my opinion. I'm not saying somebody told me this, and just from things that I've seen and the way I understand magic, I do think, believe it or not, as you go into higher degrees, you are actually getting involved in MK Ultra type of activity.
Sure.
I do.
And also, it's kind of funny to me that it's a 12-step program,
And then Minerva, you said, is 13.
Yeah, Minerva's the first. Yeah.
But the first. Okay.
That's funny because people do say, and I've had a few people that are kind of digging into it. I don't know if I'll have them cover it. It depends if they have enough, but I have heard from a bunch of people that they do think that they have a good case that AA actually did come from Aleister Crowley.
Very interesting.
Or was at least influenced, because they do say that the 2 guys, Bob and I forgot Bill, who did that book. If you dig around enough, you do get
the chills.
You do get cases of them admitting to channeling people.
Yeah, and they used to have a 13th step, which was to do psychedelics. I don't know if it was ever implemented in the system that we know now, but it was to have a psychedelic experience in order to experience God on another dimensional plane.
Yes.
And that's also interesting, since he's saying it's 12 plus 1 for that as well.
Oh,
interesting.
And you know what?
So many questions.
It does. It helps plenty of people beat that demon of alcoholism. But in my opinion, it's still.
But it changed you to something still.
I was gonna say it's still
a community, a family,
and
yes.
And they always tell you that you're always
an
addict.
You're gonna fuck up if you don't keep coming here.
Yeah, you're always an addict.
You set yourself up already for failure.
Yeah, and anyone who knows any kind of magical practices or anything, it's your belief, your intention, your thoughts that are leading directly to the results before you ever even know what you're going to go for. So them telling you, "Oh, you're an addict. You're always going to be an addict. You need to come back. You need to do this 3 times a week, 6 times a week, whatever." That's the NA type of stuff. It helped me when I was in prison and when I was in the halfway house, in the sense that hearing other people's stories and putting myself in their position, relating to them, helped me. So, I mean, that's kind of what podcasting does for me, is I tell my story to help people out as well.
Mhm.
But I never went to an NA meeting or an AA meeting, like a real one. I just went to the ones that I had to go to, the mandatory ones, because it just didn't feel right to me. It didn't make sense to me. I wasn't an addict, so it didn't make sense to me to be told I'm an addict.
And it was funny. I had because I know I've known a few people who have been like in AA and NA, and I have a few friends I still talk to that are been in it for like fucking over 10 years and still clean and whatever, very successful. Um, if so, from some of the I guess like quotes and slangs and just you hear things and just stuff about it, and I've gone to their some of their anniversaries, so like you kind of see how it goes.
Right.
I remember at one point when I was like in the OTO and like they have all these like phrases and all these sayings. And one day I was sitting there and I was like, I feel like I'm out like a fucked up AA meeting.
Yeah.
And that was before anybody ever told me anything about thinking that Astrum Argentum, also AA, Aleister Crowley's other order, that he might have had influenced the Alcoholics Anonymous. Before then, I was even just like, this is very like that.
Yeah, you repeat the same phrases as indoctrination. Yeah.
I was like, this is like it was like a room full of parrots.
Yeah, wow. That's very interesting. So Mimi, you got some questions?
Yeah, I got
lined
like
up?
a million.
Go ahead.
Let's start with a two-parter. Let's see. How easy was it for you to leave? And I assume that it gets harder to leave the higher you
higher up
the
you
more
go.
you give to them.
Yes. I kind of I think, well, for one, I think I was kind of like right before I think I did anything with the degrees or initiation wise that would merit them to like want to keep an eye on me. Like I knew I didn't go to that point to where I had to start doing like some real crazy stuff. But the time that it happened, I'll continue on about why I left, because this actually goes into the whole time how it happened. And I guess I think I used a little bit of my own magic to leave there and people not miss me. But now at one point when COVID came, first off, they automatically crumbled to whatever the CDC said. So they were not open. And I remember even busting balls. I said, I guess Jesus got more balls than Horus because the church is still open. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
How strong, how gangster is Horus now if you guys closed? But
okay, so Horus is who they worship, the OTO?
Oh, that's like their ultimate,
the left eye of Horus.
Yeah. Which in itself, not to get too deep into it, in my opinion, it's kind of not even a good thing either. That's kind of telling you like you're being mind fucked. Depending, they give you a patch at one point and it's a red triangle and it's pointing down. If it's pointing down, I think that should tell you everything. You're not going up.
Very interesting.
So besides that, all right, so they crumbled with the CDC. This is all around when COVID happened. George Floyd stuff came up. All of a sudden now they're sending emails out. We're going to have a Zoom meeting at so and so time or whatever, so we can come together and talk about this whole thing that's going on with George Floyd. And I'm just like, now I haven't gone to their meetings or probably the lodge in like 6 to 8 months prior to them shutting down. So now this is like another few months into them shutting down. And I had went to a few of their Zoom meetings because like I could just listen. I didn't have to talk to anybody. And there was a couple of classes I was interested in listening to. So I was like, this is horrible. I'm like reading this email. I'm like, is this serious? Like, if you're a magician, like a real magician and who's actually like working towards progress spiritually, I just did not think that this was something that merited a group kumbaya. So I went anyway because I just wanted to see how silly it was going to be. They basically went around like the whole thing, and I didn't have much to say. I didn't say anything, but people got to tell their experiences of how they've been, affected by racism or whatever it was. But at the end of the time, they started talking about like trying to get people. Are you guys interested in going to protests? This and that. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, first off, when I was thinking about it, when I was looking at the email to begin with, the one thing that the OTO really hammers down is that we have jack shit to say about anything except for us.
Wow.
So, because they do, I will give them that up until this point. They seemed very much like we have nothing to say or an opinion on anything outside of what our order. That's not our business. We're not here to tell you this or that. But then when you get inside of them, I mean, they're just filled with leftists anyway.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we got this credit card we're going to give you if you want to go protest.
Yeah. So they started talking about that, and I was just like, oh, geez. And then somebody who was kind of higher up that I kind of looked up to started going on some rant about how we need to realize that if the government was to deem Antifa terrorists, we're screwed. That is going against our rights, all this and that. He started promoting Antifa. Then someone started going on about BLM, and then they're all talking about changing their fucking screen colors for BLM. And I'm like, yo, this has nothing to do with Magick whatsoever.
Just wag the dog.
Yeah. And I was like, yo, this is straight up just liberal propaganda right now.
Yeah, that sounds like none of them actually had their minds free. In order to, to be a quote unquote magician, you have to be a free thinker. And that doesn't sound like free thinking at all.
And that was the last time I went. But now during that time, I was friends with a lot of people on social media, on my own personal accounts. I was very much against the whole coronavirus thing. I thought the whole mask shit was stupid. That's just my opinion. I had even, thought it does kind of go back to ceremonial magic in a sense. The Astrum Argentum, Crowley's order. I have a hood still. It just has eyes. There's no mouth. You are covering your mouth. It's to literally restrict oxygen. It's done on purpose.
Wow.
So like I'm looking at that and they're all like, oh, no, that's fucking crazy. How could you think that virus, it's going to kill us? And it's just like, so I started being kind of vocal about what I thought about the left, Biden, coronavirus. I started being very vocal about all the things they were very passionate about. So one by one, I started noticing my friends from there unfollowing me. So I was like, okay, this is working. They don't like me anymore because they know I'm not a leftist or a liberal.
Right.
So then eventually, just like when I had contacted and asked, like, what do I need to do to withdraw from the order? And these people had already known, probably like, oh, yeah, he doesn't fit in here with us. We know why he wants to leave. And they were just like, just contact, which really is that easy, I guess, like at where I was. You just contact like the main outer order, the OTO headquarters, and they will send you paperwork, which takes like 6 months. It took a while. And
the headquarters. Is that in Austin, Texas?
You know what? If I remember correctly, I do think it came from Texas. Yes.
Wow, very interesting. A big famous guy just moved to Austin, Texas, not too long ago.
There's there's a few.
And he thinks the moon is real.
There's a few. I think the Masons have a huge hub there also, and there's also a few other companies and people.
It's a very liberal place in a very conservative state.
Yeah. Texas, I think, believe it or not, I think there's something up with Texas for a few different people and groups and stuff.
Yeah.
But so then I got that paperwork, I signed it off, sent it back, and then they eventually tell you, yes, you have been taking off as a member.
So you have to send in paperwork to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So it sounds like
I could just stop going. Like they had already deemed me inactive because one, I wasn't paying dues for a place that wasn't open. So I was not sending them dues anymore, large dues. You closed down, and honestly, I wasn't going anyway, even though it was like it was minimal. It wasn't much. So, but eventually I was like, I stopped paying it, and once that built up after a while, and then they realized he's not paying this, they just knocked me as inactive anyway.
So it's not like the movies where you're trying to leave a street gang, and they're like, there is no leaving.
Oh, West Side Story.
I think higher up. Yes,
I'm
they'll
sure that
probably,
happens.
or you'll just be so well manipulated you'll never even think of leaving.
Or you
Yeah.
might have a heart attack or something.
Yeah. Okay. So what
My
else you
other
got?
question, okay, before your experiences with secret societies versus after your experience, what would your definition of magic be before and then after?
And would it be with a K?
Yeah.
Before I thought it was with a K, and I wasn't with the K was not really what it was to me.
You don't know
Prior
what the
I
difference is,
prior I
really.
thought prior I thought that magic was real. I did think I guess prior to getting into it, I did believe it was much more serious than it was.
What did you think magic was at
Well,
that
you
point?
could actually manipulate the people or the world around you.
Okay.
Like I really did think it could go that far. Once I started practicing it, I really thought it was much more of a lower level to where maybe like I'm just kind of like manipulating my own little area around me. Then eventually I got more into the psychological aspect to where I thought it was really all just in my head to where like I'm just alchemy of the mind to where I'm just staying so balanced that I can make moves in my own life and look at everything objectively to where I can, be who I want and, not be a slave so much to emotions.
Right.
I thought it was that. Once I started getting more, I guess, into personal experiences, to me, the magic with a K was something that I had never even thought was possible or a possibility or even real. To me, eventually, my experiences with magic, um, to an extent, it's kind of like a tethering of the soul, or you do, in a way, die for a few seconds or maybe a few minutes, and you do
Wow.
leave and go somewhere else. That was never, ever a thought of a possibility or an option, even when prior to going in, that's how it was done.
Was that like a meditative practice or was
Yes.
that
Yeah, those two
okay?
meditative practices.
And that's
Yes.
something they taught you or you learned on your own?
No, see, that's another thing. They don't tell you about this stuff in these places.
Right.
So now
So
think if this was to happen to somebody without them trying.
right.
You know
So
what
you're
kind of a mind fuck that can be? And then go back and
right.
tell the wrong person your experiences. They might be like, "Ooh, we might be use of this person."
Right. So you're talking about like throwing your consciousness somewhere, right? That maybe you go into a different realm or maybe you throw
Yes.
your consciousness in different places on
Randomly,
this
or is
realm.
this only like at meetings
I
or
well,
whenever?
I had a handful of these experiences, and now after the fact, I have not brought myself to the extreme part. I might bring myself to a very deep meditative state to where like I feel like I'm close to God and feel inspiration and love, but I don't
Right.
go any farther than that anymore. But I do believe if you are gangster and really good at what you do, my opinion, you can start picking and choosing kind of where you want to go in time and space as well. As crazy as that sounds.
Is that kind
Yeah.
of like, what is that called?
And in my opinion, that's when you start. My opinion, that's when you have veered off and you're getting involved in things that you probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
What do
Even
they
even
call
even
that?
having a spiritual
Mhm.
experience and maybe leaving your body and spirit or going closer to God, I still think there are things in the way that will still take you off the path.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Not astral projection. What do you call that when you're recalling something that's going to happen in the future? What do they call
Deja
that?
vu or
When you're talking about remote viewing?
Yes, remote
Yeah.
viewing. Is it kind of like that?
Yeah.
yeah, I would agree that that's
That's a form of
astral
it.
projection, and I think remote viewing and all that stuff. I mean, remote viewing could technically really be like some serious magic, but
Yeah, oh yeah.
I do think on a basic level that stuff could all just be like on your way there. Like astral projection, like
Yeah.
you're like on the cusp, I think, of like going above and beyond.
Yeah, when you leave your body, an OBE, out of body experience, when you once you leave your body and you're consciously aware that you just left your body, it's very freaky. I did it one time. So my daughter was in her room and I started to leave my body and it freaked me out. So then like I came to and I came back in my body and it never happened for me again. It was like a one-time deal. It was like, well, you showed you didn't want it because it was very freaky. I started rising up. Like I felt like I was floating. Like I saw this video earlier with a little girl, like a little toddler. She had a bunch of balloons like tied to her, and she started floating. And that's how I felt, that I was floating out of my body, and it freaked me out because I was very aware of it. I think maybe I did it like twice in like the same week, but it was that time when my daughter was home because when you're doing this and you have someone there, like I was just meditating and I was trying to be responsible for my daughter. So now she's just hanging in her room watching TV, but I don't know what's going to happen to me or anything. So I had to shut it down. Maybe if I was by myself, I might have gone deeper, but I've definitely thrown my consciousness to different places, and I don't even have to meditate that deeply in order to do it. And like I've told the story where I would start to be able to manipulate the environment around me when I'm meditating. Like I popped uh, the lights in our bedroom. I've broken tree branches out back that were right over top of me. And what would happen is I was calling in so much energy in through my crown chakra into my mind, is that every time I would do it, we would have low flying military aircraft go over top, like helicopters sometimes, but mostly it would be like some kind of fighter jet. Like it would be some kind of speedy aircraft that we would hear. So I don't want to say it's military necessarily, but we're near military bases. And it would happen every single time I did this. Well, I started projecting myself onto those ships and helicopters, and I would interact with the military that were on these ships and helicopters. And I got to a point where I finally, I was doing it for a while, and then I announced it on my podcast and it stopped happening. It was like almost as if someone heard me saying it. I don't want to say that I'm being followed or anything like that, but it was like once I put it out in the ether, it stopped they stopped doing it because they realized that yeah, I was actually doing that consciously. I was aware what I was doing, and I don't know, what the reasoning is why it stopped, but it stopped at that same time.
I mean, we even covered on the Occult Rejects, we covered the gateway experience. I mean,
Yeah.
that they claim, and I do believe it's possible just from, listening to a few of the tapes myself. They claim that you can, definitely astral project, and they've supposedly had people go into like places and find out a piece of paper that's on top of a bookshelf somewhere.
Right. I had
And if that's just done through tones in your brain, I
right.
mean, think about like, I definitely believe what you're saying is possible because that honestly was one of the reasons why I had even stopped messing with magic with a K, like hardcore, from the few experiences I had, is because I did see, to me, physical changes in my environment. And that actually, I was like, yo,
It's freaky.
Can one of
like,
you
and then you
explain
have to
the
start
K
wondering,
to me?
wondering what really is the world around me.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. I'll explain the K in a second. But episode 96, we had on Justin Williams, and he talked about doing the gateway experience. He's a podcast host of the Hidden Gateway. He did the gateway experience, projected himself to Utah from Arizona,
Yeah.
and he stopped a man from committing suicide. And then he met that man
In real
over a
life.
Zoom call 2 weeks later.
Yo, that's what. Yo, I've been trying to find somebody for that too for my show. So I
Oh,
got.
he's perfect.
Yeah, go
That would be amazing. I'd love to
He's
hear it.
check
perfect.
him out. Yeah, and I tried the gateway experience one time. It's not that I necessarily tried it, but I listened to it in my ears with headphones on 2 different times that were right in a row when we had a family member go to the hospital, and I was like, all right, well, I got to do some meditation because I got to find out what's going on. And as soon as the beat started, the hemisync, one thing is going on in your left ear, another thing's in your right ear. I felt my brain being repatterned. The left side was moving one way, the right side was moving. Like I literally felt my brain moving. So that hemisync, the alternating frequencies in different parts of your brain, it's definitely opens you up to some things. And if you're not prepared, it's
I agree.
not a good place. So with the K is magic with a K is the 11th letter of the alphabet, and Crowley says that 11 is the number of magic, and when you add a K on it, there may be a little more to it than that, but that's what makes it really magical is just
Adding that 11th
yeah.
letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Okay. I got
I
something for you
think
for
now when it
later.
comes to what I think the difference between magic and magic with a K, now magic would have been like when I all
Like
right, like
card
if I
tricks.
if well, no, not even so much that. That would be all right. That would be as if I set up my whole thing. I did my ritual, and let's say I invoked some sort of energy or God, God or whatever, into my area, and let's say I'm putting it into a talisman, and I'm gonna carry this with me, and this is gonna get me what I want. I brought something, down into this existence. Magic with a K for me is when you leave this reality to go somewhere,
Hmm.
tap into something to come back with.
To go get a different talisman and bring it back. Okay.
It's something to that. And
Gotcha.
now the thing is, the problem with that is that I think for the most part, when it comes to secret societies and just screwed up people, they are doing that, but instead of coming back with like a magical experience to share and to maybe let people know that there's something better than this world, they are taking that and making money and slaves off of it.
Yeah, definitely. And the thought that comes to mind when we talk about magic with a K is MK Ultra, the first letter and the last letter.
Yes.
MK, magic, 1311, magical numbers of secret societies and a lot of stuff that goes with that. So what did you have that goes with that, Mimi? That you were
Oh,
saying
that's
the
for
11.
later.
Oh,
It's a different
Something I
topic.
could add real quick about you talking about the MK Ultra again. There was a book I came across, and I don't know how how well written it is or how truthful it is, but there are some books out there. If you do really kind of try to dig, you can find some stuff about the OTO's initiations. But and other things that I have heard or kind of seen myself, in one of the higher up degrees, you would be reading it and you would think it's probably a sexual thing, but in my opinion, it's actually what you're getting at MK Ultra. It's for me, the way I read it and the way I look at it, and from the magical experiences I have, to me, it looks like they are literally trying to, let's say you're making somebody kind of astral project or have a magical experience. They're kind of coming out of their body. You've got their spirit a little bit out there. Well, we're gonna grab this thing over here that we want, and we're gonna try to shove it back in you before you come back as well.
right.
As crazy as that sounds,
That's the
that's
abduction phenomenon.
exactly what it looks like to me. That's in one of their degrees, and I really do think that's a lot to do with MK Ultra.
Yeah, that's the implant, that's the alien abduction, part of it anyway, is
Yeah.
they have you leave your body and then they implant your astral body with something, or they implant it in your physical body when you're not there, so you're not actively feeling or knowing that the surgery is happening. There's all sorts of weird stuff that happens with that.
Yeah.
But have you ever heard of the secret society Ultra Plus?
No, no, never.
Okay, yeah, that's where Trump was part of that. It's where you
Oh,
leave this physical, uh, you leave the physical plane. Now, I'm not sure if you're in your physical body or not. I don't know that that's possible, but maybe there's a couple portals or gateways in this realm that you could physically leave just briefly enough in order to see things in a different way.
Like that
But
Archive 81 or whatever.
something
oh
to
God,
that
I
degree.
saw parts of that.
It's
Yeah,
horrible.
it's strange. Yeah, Isaac Weishaupt breaks it down really well. But yeah, if you look into Ultra Plus, it's two pillars, and you leave through the pillars. It's the checkerboard. It's a lot of different symbolism, but it's its own thing. And we actually covered it in, I think, episode 81, just briefly with our guest that was telling us about it. So it's very interesting, and it's so the ultra and the plus use V's, not a U, because it's from like the Latin where
Huh.
when they used V's instead of U's.
I had one last question. You said that you sought out this group. You were looking for a group to join. Did you find that they actually um, that members usually join by seeking them out, or do they seek out members that are, your typical, like the same way gang members look for members? Is they're looking for somebody that wants family, that has these certain issues where they want to be a part of something, they want a family, they want brothers and sisters, they want friends. Do they seek out their members, or do members more often seek out the group?
I think it's probably more of people seeking them out, but I do know that, like, I mean, the only way you'd probably come across any of their stuff like some places I know might meet up weekly or every once in a while, like at a public place where they could sit, maybe have drinks and eat, and it will be like a meetup to where people from the order can come, and it's open to other people that if you're interested, you can come and you can hang out with
Right.
us and here get ideas of what the OTO is like and this and that. The only way you're gonna come across that really is if you're like looking into that stuff. But they do have, I have seen that. So I guess if you were like kind of interested in things, there is that. Yes,
It
but
seems like they want willing participants
I think
always.
for the most
Mhm.
part, yes, you have to and and not that I'm saying this for people to go and try and find them, but they are actually very easy to find these places.
Hmm.
These orders. I mean, you just keep Googling for a little bit. You'll find it. So it's not hard to find them if you're going to look either.
I'm sure there's Facebook groups and
Oh, yeah, no, there is. 100%. There is Facebook groups. They have Facebook
Ugh.
pages. Yes. I
Mm.
think honestly, I had now the way I got in touch with them, there's plenty of YouTube channels too. Even some lodges have their own YouTube channels. I was listening to one that had a lot of classes on. I think it was the Blazing Star one, like out in California or something like that. And so I contacted them, being like, "Yo, how do I find out about getting like like a mentor or something?" Like I didn't even know how this shit went at all. How do I find out about getting involved with this? Contacting somebody. And they're like, "Oh, well, you're from," so they asked where I was, and I said, New York. And they're like, "Oh," they're like, there's a few places there." They're like, "Just go on the website." They're like, "This is probably a lodge not too far." And I was like, "Yo, really that easy?" But like I saw them on YouTube and then found them on Facebook because they had a Facebook page as well. And somebody answered one of my messages. So like that's how like easy it was.
Yeah, they want to have people, regular everyday people, out in front of this thing, so that they, also I'll use Freemasonry because that one's more common,
Mm.
but they want to have a bunch of members that are, seventh degree or lower, so that they're the front people who are saying, no, there's nothing wrong with it. They're telling all their boomer friends like, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. We're just sitting there drinking and having a good time discussing things. But while 30th, 31st, 32nd, 33rd, and above, they are all doing things that are just
Wild.
completely awful. Yeah.
I will tell you one thing that I did find weird too during my time there is that there would be a they did have all sorts of different different degrees members, but for the most part it always seemed to be like probably like the third or the second degree or lower that was like constantly there at all the events. And it seemed like a lot of the ones that were higher up either came very little, came a lot less. And some of them just seemed to like come and just leave and not even be bothered with anybody.
Mm.
And could you
Yeah,
go
I
to
always thought that was like so weird because I was like, if you really think about it, this place is really just packed with like a bunch of the low level people.
Yeah. Yeah, now could you go to other ones, outside of your lodge, if you were, like, on
Oh yeah.
vacation or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have been to other places. I mean, if it's an open meeting, it wouldn't even matter. But if I wanted to go to a closed one, I mean, there's ways of like, they have, handshakes and they have like
Okay.
different, things of phrases and shit.
Things.
Yeah, different postures and grips. Yeah, there's ways to show you at
Mm.
least Minerval and higher.
Okay. Alright, so Mimi, do you have any more question before we
No,
transition?
I'm ready to transition.
Okay,
What are we
so
transitioning
we're
to?
transitioning to the symbolism that's out there. You do
Oh, can I?
a lot of exposing. Yeah, hold on a sec. You do a lot of exposing symbolism,
Mm.
and I wanna talk about that. So what do you have in that department, Mimi?
Oh, in that department, I wanted to talk about this festival, the Viraggio
Oh, yeah.
festival, because I was just looking
Super
into
creepy.
that a bit, and the mascot and the float that always follows or accompanies the mascot is like an all-female float usually, and I want to talk about that a bit.
Alright, so anyone who's listening, I would suggest you go check out New York Patriots Instagram, and I think on Twitter too, you were posting it, right?
Yes,
Where
I think I did posted one of them. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, there
Oh,
these
yeah, because you commented. That's right.
Yeah. These videos
Mm.
and pictures of this, festival in Italy, just really creepy, like these giant things.
those things are huge.
Yeah, and they're animatronic. They were very
Yeah,
creepy,
the
like
head turns, the
titans.
eyes blink.
Yeah,
I was like, yo, this took time.
and they had a lot of clowns too. The Nephilim
Yes.
clowns.
But
So
I
yeah,
came
so
across that, and believe it or not, I think me and Lux are gonna actually make that an episode one day this week. But I started looking at it. This thing is like I think it's like over a week long, and it's a
It's
couple of days.
4 weeks and 5 days, and it's, every Sunday they have a procession, and then on Fat Tuesday they have a procession.
so
Oh, it
this
is
is
called Fat
leading up to
Tuesday?
Easter.
That's yes.
Because when I was copying and pasting into a translator, and I was like, "Is Fat Tuesday correct, or is that just mistranslation?"
And it's also funny that what I read was that these float things, they're always themed on what's like current events in a satirical way. They let you know what's happening. Let's just call it that in a very satirical way through the floats.
Yeah, they were saying, I think in the last one that they included Putin, Trump, and Biden in it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, if you
I'll
read the
have to look up the
website,
last one.
that
Yeah.
that they had them in that. I mean, they had that one guy, with the holding the jester thing. I mean, I thought that was
Hmm.
totally paid.
That's the clown looking thing.
Oh yeah.
That's the darn, what was his name? Burlmako or something like that. That's the mascot of the
Oh really?
parade. Yes, and behind him or accompanied with him is an all-female float that is supposed to be like an homage to uh, Verraggio's connection to the sea.
Oh, that would be the. See, now that is probably like his version of a Scarlet Whore,
Hmm.
Mm.
because
Wow.
if she's connected to the sea, that would be the abyss.
Yeah.
And you technically
Well, that's the
you
place
have
is
to
connected to that. Yes.
you have to technically, in a sense of my belief, you have to go through her in order to shed some of the feminine energy and go into spirit.
Mm.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
I mean, and then the thing is, like, this is how I think a lot of like the Scarlet Whore in itself is not, in my opinion, it's not really a sexual thing. It's just a lot of symbolism that can be taken as sex, but in the long run, um, let's say I'll break it down to this. They say in plenty of religious things, knowing God, that's available to everybody, right? I mean, I think you would even say, knowing God or knowing Jesus or whoever it is, if that's truly available to everybody, it's not limited
Yeah.
Hmm.
to anyone. She will not say no either.
Right.
As long as you know the right flip to switch, you will be able to cross over and have that magical experience. She will not deny you. She says no to anybody because everybody's available. So she's a whore in her own sense.
Ah, that makes sense.
Hmm.
She never says no.
Wow. So
But
is
I mean, it's a whole large, like, and I'm not going to get detailed into it or how I could explain how a sexual act could be magical symbolism. But I do think that that's part of the psyop in itself, is making people think it is a sexual act,
right.
a
Right.
sexual figure in itself.
Okay. So is the Scarlet Whore the same as the Whore of Babylon? Are they the same figure
Well,
or
there's
closely
many
related?
facets and different types of personalities that she has. I mean, you can think of like Hecate. She has three faces. That's kind of a good basic resemblance of the Scarlet Whore. I mean, I think there's more than three versions, but I mean, you can easily have the old hag, who is just kind of like the one who's just not happy about anything and constantly changing, just isn't happy, very scornful. And I think that is off balanced, way to the left, feminine energy. And I honestly think that's exactly what we're experiencing now.
Hmm.
Before that, you'll have the maiden. Now that's kind of like where everything's kind of in beauty and balance, and it's attractive, and everything's a little bit nicer. That's kind of, in my opinion, also the startup of the Matrix. The all, the ooh and the ah.
Right.
It could still be a mind fuck. And then you have the mother, who birthed this aeon, whatever or birthed the Matrix that we're in, which could be sometimes looked at as ISIS. But
Right.
you have many different facets of her. But I think the thing is, her off balanced is bad regardless. And I think what we're experiencing now with ceremonial magic, psyops, and which is whatever's going on with these people doing whatever, I think they're trying to break the system by pushing it way to the left.
Very
That
interesting.
makes a
Because
lot of
as
sense.
you go up higher up on the tree where the old hag or where Saturn would be, that type of archetype of Binah, that is also all mindsets. That is all thoughts. There's nothing of substance yet. That is all just airwaves and transmissions and signals and stuff like that. So it's all of the mind. It is very much of the mind. It's making boundaries, restrictions, names, laws, structures. And I see in society we're just being pushed with much more of that.
Yeah, it's all the mind fuck. Like, how far can we go with
Right.
these
Yeah,
people?
so
How much
that's
can we
how
make
I
them
see
do? How much can we make them hide out? How
Yeah.
much will they obey?
And that's why I think there's a lot of that symbolism right now in the media and in movies, is because they're showing you exactly who's doing what right now, what's being
Right.
used magically.
Yeah.
Can I rewind for 1 second and just ask
Yeah.
a quick question about women in these secret societies? Did you notice that there women in that particular secret society, and is there like an equal amount, or would you say it's primarily men?
In the OTO, it is men and women. Not all orders are like that. I think the Church of Satan and the Temple of Set both are, men and women, but the OTO is. And I would say it's probably equal. For sure. I mean, not knocking
Even at
not
the like
knocking the
top.
guys, but if you want to start counting like who actually considers themselves to be a male or a female, then
No.
females might actually outnumber the males, going by whatever they're saying they are.
How about at the top of the structures? Primarily male?
It's about equal. The way they were born, it's about equal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about at the top of these structures, like the top people? Would you say they're equal?
That's an interesting question. I think it might be a little bit more on the female side, actually, thinking about it. And
Top of the pyramid, more female?
well, yeah, and honestly, I think that also all comes down to, again, if you want to start playing with magic in a physical way, women could be a very good vessel.
Power card. Yeah.
Yes.
I see that. I see
So
that.
some of them, I'm gonna be totally honest. I don't know how truthful this is. This could just be gossip, so you don't have to take it totally. But in my lodge, there was a switch of a female lodge to another female lodge master, and somebody had said that honestly, the reason that they got it is because they truly believed that they were kind of handpicked and groomed a little bit, primarily.
Do you
For
think
that position.
do you think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where women can use their sexual nature to more or less
Manipulate.
create or manipulate? Yes.
That or just a person could just be just their
Gullible.
personality themselves can be very captive and stern, or manipulate. Just very, that's another part of the whole thing with the Scarlet horror. I believe it's sound and sight. When I was talking about the whole Matrix, the whole maiden, very sexy, or she sounds very sexy. Hathor, perfect example, an Egyptian goddess. What was she associated with? She had a sistrum that when you shook it, it sounded kind of like a baby rattle. And people had mirrors associated with Hathor, sound and sight. So that person just might be very good at maybe the sound part and not so much the sight, but they know that person can probably keep a certain ideology or a certain, keeping it in a way that they want it. I definitely think that's possible. I 100% think that's possible. I would not even doubt that there is people there that might even try to be handlers in a sense.
It's very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting for sure.
I
So
mean, I
I
think
want.
it's possible. I'm not saying I know for a fact. So, just
Yeah.
my opinion.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you a bit about the the Saturn-Moon matrix. This is something that's very new to me. I have come across a few different people posting about it recently. What is the Saturn-Moon matrix? Are you familiar with it?
Yes. That was something that, and this is funny, and this is why I say, I like David Icke. I've even tried contacting him to have him on my show, and I still will. But I got hip to the whole Saturn and Moon matrix because of him. But his story and the way he explains it actually falls straight on the Tree of Life in Kabbalah.
Hmm.
To where I think, like, come on, dude, you could actually be saying this in a much better way. Maybe people would understand it, or whatever. It's the way he puts it out there. That's the way he does it. But I had caught on to that from him. But throughout finally getting into ceremonial magic, I got very big into the Kabbalah. Most ceremonial magic all goes down to the Kabbalah anywhere, the Hermetic Kabbalah. So like, I just knew it was something I should know eventually. So I got big into that, and it's very like mind fuckish. So I enjoyed that. Like, you would have to, nothing is clear cut. You'd have to think, meditate on things. It's deep stuff. So I always thought that was just very interesting. So but fuck, where was I going with that? What was the question? I'm so sorry. What was the question?
The Saturn-Moon matrix.
Oh yeah. So now, if you start looking at the Kabbalah and you understand, you start really studying those spheres, and you start kind of getting more of a real idea of what's going on this Tree of Life, and if you have your own magical experiences, I think you will actually see his whole thing makes complete sense on the Tree of Life, and I do in a way think that he, in a way, is correct that Saturn is kind of, in my opinion, the go between this world and the spirit world in some sort of like archetype idea. It is just like maybe a vibrational signal that you pick up into before you cross. So I don't know exactly what it is, but that is, to me, the doorway in between here and the spirit world. Coming back, you coming back as just like vibrational energy. And eventually, as you're going around that tree, you are starting to pick up form in one sense or another. Like I was saying, if you start at B9, you come into this world, you're just an idea. Then when you get to the fourth sphere, now you're like, there's the blueprint of that idea. Then as you start making it down, now it's like, oh, well, all right, here's the wood I need for the chair. It's all stuff like that. But by the time you get to the moon, I think pretty much the whole system, the whole program, the whole matrix has made it into that. And in my opinion, with the moon, Saturn and moon matrix, then the moon itself, this is just my opinion and my belief, when it gets into the Saturn moon matrix and magic and the Kabbalah, I think it's telling you the same thing, that it is literally just projecting light down to wherever we are and creating this matrix that we think we're living.
Wow. So is Saturn the top and the moon's the bottom of the Kabbalah tree?
Yeah. In planet wise, well, then Earth. Well, there's the moon and then Earth.
Okay, so is the moon like in the middle, I guess?
The moon's right above Earth, like it's the
Okay.
sphere that you hit before you hit Earth.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you have the moon. You have the moon above Earth. You have the moon, Venus, Mercury, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn.
Wow.
And
Okay.
then one of the spheres, the other spheres can go along with the zodiacs, and then the top sphere is Kether, or the source.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, that's something that's very new to me, so I wanted to ask you about it. So the
I mean,
last
even the
thing.
reptilian thing, I think. I don't know if you've ever, kind of heard of that stuff too.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of that has to also, a lot of that is occult symbolism for people jumping the abyss, because one, in magic, lizards or reptiles are used a lot to show spirit here in the earth, here in this world. Then you can, change into other things if you want to talk about it, like out in the abyss, flame, fire, tigers. There's all different types of symbolism that can express that. And if you look at Crowley's version of Baphomet, and now I'm not promoting this guy at all, but if you look at him, it's just a snake body within the lion head. That would be the snake for the reptile, the energy here, the spirit and the flesh, and then the Leo, or the lion, is now like out beyond planetarily, out into the system. It's showing you the two phases of spirit, in my sense, here in the earthly form, and now up there, out into the abyss.
That's Yaldabaoth. Are you familiar with Yaldabaoth?
No.
That's the Gnostic god. That's who they think the creator of this world is. And Gnosticism is Yaldabaoth, which is the twisted serpent with the head of a lion. and it actually looks like a joint twisted up with the head of a lion, and it's actually one of the names for Yaldabaoth is cannabis. So,
Oh,
and it goes to a Rastafarianism. I don't know if I'm even saying that right, but
wow.
yeah,
That's new
it
to me. Wow, that's interesting.
Some sort of Rasta
yeah.
roots there. Yeah.
Yeah, I talked about
Yeah.
on my episode 106 that came out last week. No, we didn't talk about it. So the guest I had on sent me something after we recorded about it, and it's a twisted up serpent. And I'll send it to you on Instagram after we finish up here, and maybe I'll show it in the intro if I remember to bring it up. But yeah, it looks like a twisted up joint, and it has a lion's head, and its name is Yaldabaoth. And I actually, when I did a psychedelic experience, during a psychedelic experience, I came across this being that was a dragon with the mouth of a lion or the face of a lion, the claws of a bear, and the spots of a leopard. But the spots of a leopard were just because of how it was. But it's the beast of Revelation, which is also what they're talking about here. It's a serpent with, so its mouth and face look like a lion when it's roaring, but it's a Chinese dragon because it has a little mustache on it. So if you ever look at a Chinese dragon, when it opens its mouth, like I was face to face with this thing, and when it opened its mouth and was roaring at me, and I laughed at it because I was like, oh, I'm physical. You can't actually do anything to me. And then I ascended past it, but it was a 7-headed, 10-horned beast, and each of the heads were different colors that were had dominion over each of the realms, and each of the realms were records on record. So it was, the bottom layer was indigo, and then it worked its way up to blue, green,
Reverse chakras.
yeah, reverse chakra system, and the top one was red that I saw, and it was the Beast of Revelation. Before I even knew that was in the Book of Revelation, I saw that, and I was like, "Wow, that's Satan," and that's the only word I had for it. But now I'm starting to understand it was probably Yaldabaoth.
Yeah, there's and you have like, we were talking about the Scarlet Whore before. I also think a lot of dragon symbolism is just the beast itself, because there is stories on, like, in the tree, and even stuff in Magic. You can see how they do have their own aspects alone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, just because the Scarlet Whore is in charge now doesn't mean 5 years later or the beast ain't gonna rise and just total chaos and explosion. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
they both have their own roles. They can both come together and really do crazy stuff. Who knows? But they
Yeah.
do have, I think, their own personalities and energies.
Yeah, well, China's the dragon, Russia's the bear, the lion
The
is
bear
England.
would be a beast, in a sense too.
Yeah, well, and that's the bear claws. For Russia, the lion is England. That's their animal. Iran's animal is the leopard, and America's is the eagle. So that would be the wings. So you got the whole Beast of Revelation described in those 5 countries.
Wow.
Yeah, the most powerful countries on earth right now.
Now, see, now a lot. Wow, you know what I didn't think of, which is wild, is that like, other symbolism for the pillars. Sometimes you can have like a blackbird, like a crow or a raven, as a
Mm.
symbol of showing like that pillar rising. Going
Wow.
up. You can have an albatross or maybe a dove for the right pillar, and that could symbolize rising of that pillar. Now, in my opinion, the left pillar alone is the Scarlet Whore. The right pillar alone is the beast. Um, so what you were saying, like, almost makes me wonder, like, are we going to be the one that's going to rise those fucking beasts? Because we're the one with the bird symbolism, and they're all the ones with the animals.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm like,
we're the
shit, just
wings.
hearing
Yeah,
that
we're
right
gonna
now. It's
rise
like,
it.
fuck.
Hey, look at the NFL. I mean, how many teams are birds? Cardinals, Ravens, Eagles. I mean, we could go on, and not just them, but all the major league teams.
Mhm.
Baseball, basketball.
Orioles, yeah.
Yeah.
Blue Jays.
I
Yeah.
mean, even sometimes insects and bugs are even still used for stuff like that too.
Yeah, wild. So last question I got for you.
Mhm.
Is there any specific symbolism that people should be looking out for when they are looking to try to understand the world, is there certain symbolism that's used that is tricking people more
Blatant.
than others?
Well,
Like maybe people that are presenting themselves as one thing, but then there's maybe a constant barrage of some kind of symbol. Is there something specific, or is it just a
well, yeah.
repetitive thing we should be looking for?
I think it's a specific repetitive thing, honestly. Um,
Okay.
and a lot of this, there was certain things that like me and Lux and ourselves, prior to even getting into the Scarlet Horse series, just things that we had seen in all sorts of media, just all sorts, movies, TV, news, podcasts, everything. Not specific. That we had like questioned, like there's got to be something behind that, or like it seems like something's up with it.
Mhm.
And when we started to really dig deep into like the Scarlet Horse stuff, we had to go back to like really like really getting into stuff that we dealt with when we practiced and did stuff, and that starts to like really refresh your mind, and bringing in like symbolisms and this and that and associations, and even for me going over it made reminded me of my own actual magical experiences, and really reminded me how that happened in my belief.
Right.
But we started to really notice that is a constant theme in a lot of media, is the whole Scarlet Whore taking charge in itself.
Mm.
Not that I'm trying to push my show onto your fans and say go watch that 5-part series, because it is a very deep thing. But right now there is a lot of Scarlet Horse symbolism going on that I don't think a lot of people understand, and it all comes down to really with her is making people believe certain things, become part of a group think tank.
Right.
Um, bees can be very occult. Freemasons, they actually have their own Order of the Cooties. All right, they use bee symbolism a lot.
Hmm.
Order of the
Now,
Cooties. That sounds like parasites.
now,
Order of the parasites.
Yeah.
now we were going to cover them eventually too. Um, Now, the V, in my opinion, to me, represents the left pillar. You have the black sphere for Saturn, and you have the yellow that would go with Hod at the bottom, or you get yellow that would go with air, rising. You have the B, the queen bee. Now, if you think about that, she's the one running the whole show. All the dudes listen to her, and they all go out and do what they think. She tells them with her pheromones or whatever she does, and they all her army. There's a lot of like symbolism like that, just stuff that I think people don't even realize like how deep it goes. There's a lot of Scarlet Horse symbolism out there that I think is like kind of telling you this is a psyop or a mindset, honestly.
You think that's what makes collective consciousness kind of like a psyop, because they want you to be part of the collective, to fix everything. Everybody think like this.
Yeah, and it's a double-edged sword,
Yeah.
because people can come together. Like I know you have people on sometimes just to come together. You had a group of people on one time. You know what I'm saying?
Bunch of
That is, I'm
times.
sure, totally different than how other people would normally do it, and just like, all right, let's come together, and this is factual, and this is what's what,
Right.
and that's it. Oh, and now we're awoken because we know that.
Right.
No, it's got to come from everybody. Just have your experience, and is there a commonality somewhere?
Right.
Maybe,
Yeah.
and that's where we can all find a truth amongst ourselves.
Right.
But everything is kind of like throwing us in boxes right now. And I think if you were to know more of who the Scarlet Whore is and her symbolism, you'll see a lot of it everywhere. And it's telling you we're mind fucking.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because I recently have gotten rid of more demons that I've had in me that I didn't know I had in me, and even though I was saved by Jesus Christ last year, it was still these last few months I've been releasing demons, and we get to a point where we think we're good, that we're awake to things, that we know how things operate, that we can't be affected by things, but we're still being subconsciously led, and affected by these energies, and we don't have a surefire way to actually get rid of them. It's only with the extended period of time of withholding from your addictions or whatever, coffee, smoking weed, masturbating, whatever it is. It's only the extended period of time of withholding from that, fasting from that, if you will, that can clear us from that. So do you think that when people are doing the symbolism that they're not even aware that they're being affected by these energies at times? Like if somebody is posting or okay, so I'll say this. I'll use this example because Mimi said to me one time, is it every L that I see at that's using a logo, is that someone being influenced by that? And I say, yeah, because we're all influenced by energies. Now might not be evil or might not be working with
Yeah,
some
yeah,
kind of
exactly what you're
energy.
saying, yeah.
Right,
No,
but it might be affecting us because we still have the capacity in us because we haven't cleared ourselves out. So when you see the owl symbolism at like a nightclub or something, or the place Hooters, Hooters is a
mm,
big establishment, but whatever, when I see a one eye for eye doctors, when I see that, I'm like, oh, they're part of something. It's an oculist. They're hiding under the occultist, and there's a lot of different stuff that goes into it's actually an oculist. I think tist, but if you take out the C, which is the crescent moon, and take out a T, which is the cross, they're hiding behind occultism as oculus. So I think that even though they may not be evil people, that they are being led and influenced by energies that are outside of the human body, and they're not purposely or knowingly using the symbolism. What do you think about that?
I think that's definitely possible. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I even think sometimes, like you were saying, people use stuff and not even knowing, at
Right.
all. I definitely think
But
that's
it could
possible.
still be an influence that's inside of them that they're
Oh,
unaware
yeah,
of.
you
Yes.
you
Which
could
brings
you
us
could
to
be tuned in
parasites.
you could be tuned into a station and not even know it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep. Yep. A lot of people don't know what frequency they're really on.
Right.
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
I agree.
And that's what Mimi was just saying with the parasites. We've been doing these parasite detoxes, and that is what has gotten me to free myself of
A
things
lot clearer,
further,
yeah.
because I can feel like, oh, I don't have the urge to eat a snack at 9 o'clock at night now that I did a parasite detox. And then I realized, like, oh, I don't need to eat as much for dinner now. And then I look at my pets, we're detoxing them, they're eating less. And it's just like all these weird things, like all of a sudden I'm starting to
You're
realize,
not eating for a million anymore.
yeah, that it's parasites within us are having us do these bad behaviors. And when we detox from them, and especially when you do it during a full moon, it's or the 3 days before, and then
3 days after.
yeah, the 3 days after, you're killing all these parasites, and you are able to take back yourself, and you're not being held down to these energies that are affecting us in ways we don't even know about.
Right, as Lexi Eisenhower says that it's best to do it around the full moon, because that's why people get so crazy around the full moon, is because that's when your parasites are kind of getting together for
They're
a nice
partying.
little orgy session to increase the amount of them, and that's why there's so much craziness during that full moon time.
Yeah, they move into your
And it
intestines.
makes so much sense.
They move into your intestines during the full moon, and they reproduce with each other. And
That's
outs-
wild.
yeah, and then like all
You
disease
should listen
comes
to
from
that episode too.
parasites. Yeah, episode 104, episode
Yes.
90 and 104 with her.
Great.
Yeah, Alexia Eisenhower.
That's wild during a full moon.
Yeah, we talk
weird,
about
right?
cooties and how X's can leave parasites in you, and that's what makes you want to
Go back to
call
them.
that X or be with that X again, because that parasite is really just trying to go home to its host where it
Right.
came from.
Yeah,
So if you kill that parasite, you can kind of kill that memory.
right.
Yes.
And it works with not just
Interesting,
that,
right?
but,
Yeah,
but
no,
it works.
the fact that with the full moon, that just is really weird.
Yeah, it worked with so many different things. It's so strange. Mimi, do you have any final questions?
I don't. I just want to say keep posting all those good food pics because that's what I'm all about too. You know, your New York Italian and my Philly Italian. We just post food all the time in between our other posts. So keep doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I enjoy trying to make my own stuff. So
Oh,
you
me
know what? As
too.
I put it out, I'm like, maybe somebody will think of making their own stuff. You know,
All the time.
just
I
create the
love
experience.
posting food and people are like, "Man, I gotta eat with you." And I'm like, "Yeah, come on, bring it."
That's great.
Aw.
So last question I got for you is what I
What?
like to ask everybody
Oh
as we
no.
go out. Yeah,
Uh-oh.
Charlotte, watch out. You're like Godzilla over here. You got to get out of the way, love.
She's gonna hit the
Yeah,
camera.
don't knock the camera over.
Come on.
Okay, so final question for you is what is your go-to grounding technique? You know, in this world of secret societies, how do you keep yourself grounded and free from the craziness that the MK Ultra that they're pushing on all of us?
Here she comes.
You know, this is I think what's really good reason, a good way to end as well, because I can explain also why I left the OTO. For me, I don't need to set up an altar. I don't need to put all these these herbs and these stones. And for me, I'm just saying, well, I don't need the statue of Hathor or a Thoth, or I don't need this whole robe on and all these, a wand and all this stuff. For me now, I can just sit down. I could literally just sit in a chair and just try to keep my back straight. And they call it a God pose. You just put your hands on your legs, or I could just lay down in my bed straight. I could just close my eyes and start listening for the silence.
Yeah.
And shut everything off. And my opinion, for me, it is just, without all that other stuff, I am laying there. And I guess for me now, instead of, being a slave to all those gods that I was invoking, I'm just bypassing them and I'm going straight to God myself.
Amen.
And that's where I try to get my grounding and my inspiration for, what I want to do with my own show or just my own life,
Yeah, I love that.
Like with my cooking, like it's just all right. That came to me. I wanted to start doing more of that. So every once in a while, like I said, I'll post a stupid picture because I had this, I don't know, inspiration after a meditation that I wanted to start doing more of that. And I'm actually making something, I'm creating something from myself and just doing it because I love it. And here I'm showing it to you, and maybe you'll learn how to make a pizza instead of buying it from Domino's or something, just stupid little shit like that. I
Yeah.
think that's what it's all about too, in a sense.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love your grounding technique. That's amazing, and I love that you're cooking and sharing that because it's so easy to get caught up in all the craziness, especially with the World War III and all the
Yeah.
weird fake stuff that's being shared around, like the video games and the movies and the old TV show that Zelensky used to be part of. So many weird things.
Yes.
The fake guns with the cardboard guns, the Miss America pageant or wherever she was, that's holding an airsoft rifle. So many things that are just completely fake. I actually saw a dummy like being exploded and like flew up in the air. It was like
Oh,
it
and
was the most ridiculous thing.
It's
wood
horrible.
wood guns and
Yeah,
stuff, the
yeah.
cardboard guns and
So
things like that.
I love that you're really just focusing on what you love and you're trying to bring that to everyone that's following you,
Yes, thank you.
we
Yeah.
need to stay sane and we need to stay grounded to our lives. And you posting that, like Mimi said,
Yeah.
she sees it and it brings her back to, oh, I want to cook, I want to
Yeah,
share my stuff.
I think that is kind of a grounding cooking
Yeah.
is kind of a grounding technique for me. I love using local produce and making like yummy, delicious things and sharing it with people, not just on the internet, but like inviting people over, like, come eat what I just
Dropping
made.
things
It is
off all the
awesome.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
right.
always like delivering food to people.
And you know what? You're happy regardless because it was something that you made yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
exactly.
Makes it
And I
all the
think
more delicious.
yes, yes, and I think more of that. I think this world will be a better place.
Yes,
Mhm.
sir. So do you want to let our audience know where they can find you?
Yes, I have my own show, The New York Patriot. That is on most major podcasts. I'm also on. We have a joint channel on YouTube for me and the Occult Rejects, which is the other show that I'm on, and my co-host Lux. He has his own podcast that will go there as well. And I'm also on the Occult Rejects. So there is the Tor and More YouTube channel for the Occult Rejects, my show, and the other channel, Lux's show. And then the Occult Rejects, you can find us on all major podcasts, both on my show and the Occult Rejects, both on BitChute, both on Rumble.
Okay, and I'll try to include all the links.
I'll
in the
give you, if you
description.
want, I'll send you like a couple of links, just so you know.
Yeah.
Looking for.
Yeah, that'll be great. So I'll have that in the description. And everybody have a great night. We will talk to you all later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.